You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 577.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoors Station, where we share news, information and stories of adventure in the great outdoors, and celebrate in particular those who travel near and far under their own steam. Although I've been producing this podcast since 2005, sharing many conversations along the way, the majority have naturally been land-based. This time we are moving offshore, and I'm confident if you enjoy gutsy, against all odds type adventure, you are without doubt going to really enjoy this. But first, a little bit of history. On the 1st of April 2009, 24-year-old Brit Sarah Oughtons set off from Fremantle, West Australia, to be the youngest and first woman to row solo across the Pacific Ocean and arrive 124 days later in Mauritius. On the 18th of October 2009, 16-year-old Australian Jessica Watson set off from Sydney Harbour in an attempt to sail solo and unassisted around the globe. Although she completed the journey, she failed to achieve the allotted nautical miles. On the 21st of August 2010, 14-year-old Dutch sailor Laura Dekker left Gibraltar to ultimately become the youngest person to sail single-handedly around the world. Each one of these women has a unique story of grit, determination, stickability, self-confidence, and that quiet resolve required to achieve their goals. Where age is insignificant and all thoughts are on the goal, what is required to achieve it, and very little else. Which leads me on to my guest, the incredible Zara Lachlan, who also shares all these personal traits. The traditional gap holiday isn't for her. She has decided to do something much harder.
So, in a couple of weeks, I will be leaving to row from Portugal to South America, solo and unsupported. It is 3 world records and will hopefully take me just under 3 months. And I've never done anything like this before. I'm 21 and it'll be the hardest thing that I've done to date. But then I head to Sandhurst next year.
Yes, you heard that correctly. In a few days' time, before the end of October 24, Zara will set out from South Portugal on her own, unsupported, to row an incredible 3,600 miles across the Atlantic, aiming for French Guiana. That is potentially 3 months of solo rowing, skirting the coast of Casablanca, down the length of Morocco, dodging the Canaries, slipping north of the Cape Verde Islands before crossing the uninhabited 2,152 miles open Atlantic to reach her goal. And of course, this isn't a straight line. Weather, tides, winds are just some of the variations she will have to deal with en route. Although she hasn't done this before, she has had considerable experience with physical challenges all through her life. And as the conversation unfolds, I think you'll agree with me, Zara is one very focused young woman who is ultimately well suited to the challenge. As always, links, details and more photos are in the show notes and on the social networks.
I think I've done pretty much every sport besides football. I started running when I was younger, much younger, and just doing sport at school like hockey and whatever, mainly hockey and athletics. And then at the same time, when I was younger, I was a cyclist and actually BMX racing. And I did that for 6 years, and I got international with that. I went to the World Championships in Azerbaijan. And then I went to a boarding sixth form, age 16, and couldn't train with my cycling anymore because I lived at school. So I started rowing then with the hopes that I would always go back to cycling, and then never did because I quite liked rowing and I was quite good at it. So I carried it on.
And here we are.
Yeah.
What, 2 years later?
Well, yeah, 5, because I started rowing at 16, but then only properly started rowing at university, which was 3 years ago. So I have been properly rowing for 3 years.
And when did you decide to join the army? What inspired you to do that?
So I signed the contract when I was 15, so before sixth form, and then went to a military sixth form. And everyone at that school is either RAF, Navy, or Army. And I had to then go to one of 11 universities and do one of a short list of degrees. So I did physics. And then we all go to our officer training, we'll commission, and then we have a return of service to do, but they will all be technical officers in the military.
And how does it differ, a military college, military sixth form, compared to any other sixth form?
Well, the fact that it was boarding as well meant that you had class on a Saturday, which some of my friends now think is disgusting. Loads of sport, but it was nice to have everyone around you be in the same career, because you just do have a lot in common anyway. You're quite similar people, and it means that I haven't seen some of them since school, but I know that I'm probably going to get a call from somebody in the future that I went to school with that I got on with really well, saying, "Hi Zara, I need some help with something that you do in the army. Can you just help us out?" And it's just nice because everybody is just so close there. Obviously, I can't speak what it was like at other sixth one because I didn't go to one, but
I just wonder if you've got any friends that went to a normal college that were a normal sixth form and you've shared stories and they've been horrified, or you've been horrified.
Oh, yeah. Massively, yeah. We had a lot more rules than they did, and I think we're a lot more naughty than they were, but we all got through it, so it's fine.
Oh, that's what we like to hear, a little bit of stories, some stories. So, first of all, describe where you are and what's going on at this moment in time.
So I'm at Rannoch, which is the company that built my boat last year, so I actually got my boat secondhand. And we have the boat just outside there in the workshop, getting some last minute changes on it so that it's more how I like it. There was some navigation equipment that you could only use if I had to get up from my seat and go over, and I found that a faff. So we've just put another one on the cabin behind me, and then I'm actually in a room with all of my kit minus food, because food hasn't actually arrived yet. So we're going through all of that, making sure that I've got spares for everything and that I've got enough of everything, and it's a lot of stuff.
Well, I bet. I mean, it's 3,500 miles, and that's a lot of snacks, isn't it? Really, things to keep you going. So we'll come on to equipment in a moment, if we may. Now, you said you're having the boat slightly configured to suit you a bit better. It's a 2-person boat normally, I understand, and obviously taking a boat like this out is completely different to rowing. And you used to be a river rower in the scull, I presume. I've done that as well. And rowing a scull is like riding a racehorse. It's very, very finely balanced, isn't it? Lean one way or the other and you feel like you're going. So how does rowing this and taking this out onto the open sea feel different to obviously river rowing?
Completely differently. So I row sweep and scull. So I row with 1 oar and 2 oars on a river. And like you say, it's so much more technical because the boats are much lighter and much more narrow. So here you sit much higher as well. So you actually never feather your oars here. So you never turn them sideways into the wind. You've always got them square bladed. So normally if I'm going with the wind, that's also good because then they act as sails, but it's completely different. And the only thing that's similar is you also push with your legs.
Right. And presumably because it's quite the size that it is, because I mean, it's a fair height, that boat out the water, isn't it? Are you going to feel you're going to be battling the wind quite a lot? So
it's designed to catch the wind on one side. So if I'm with the wind, it's got on one of the back cabins, it's got a bit that protrudes a bit and the wind gets in there and helps take you. But if I am into the wind, then you angle it slightly off and then try and make some progress in a slightly different direction. If you still can't do that, then you just put out your parachute anchor, go to sleep, because you can't like I think it's about 30% of the time I won't be with the wind, and so that will just be tough.
Right. Well, I hope the weather's consistent, because if there's anything at the moment, it's just been a nightmare everywhere, isn't totally inconsistent. So going to be a challenge in itself. So let's just talk about the boat for the time being, if we may. Now, You are heading off. What's the date today? The date's the 3rd, isn't it? So you're leaving on the 16th, is it?
I leave here on the 14th. My boat leaves here in a week.
Right, but you actually leave Portugal.
Oh, so because the weather window's changing all of the time, it's now looking like the 26th. So hopefully somewhere between the 26th and the end of the month. And then I'll be able to actually get out of Portugal, because the most technically difficult part is Portugal to past the Canaries, because I'm just going to be blown back into North Africa. So heading west as often as possible, because the wind will take me down and south.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the map, and obviously going past Morocco and Sahara, it's going to be, well, it is a challenge after all. So, how long ago did you pick the boat up?
We bought it in July. Funding got cleared for it in August, and then so I saw it for the first time in August, and it was the first time I ever saw an ocean rowing boat. It was mine, and it was 2 months before I'm leaving for a huge crossing. So I've just been living on the boat for the past 2 months and training on it, and I've now had 340 hours in the boat, and then I'll have at least another 80 in Portugal. So I'll be looking at quite a few hours, which is good.
Absolutely, which is going to lead me on to a whole series of questions of how many nights have you slept on the boat? Have you slept out in open water rather than in a harbour, etc.?
Yeah, so I have slept in the harbour a couple of times, but mostly it's out, because I'll go out for 4 days or something, and then I'll plan my route, and it'll be quite a similar routine to what I'll do when I'm out there. So I'll row, and then I'll nap in the middle of the day, because then also I'll still be rowing at night time. So I had to do a route plan and try to figure out how far I think I could get by looking at the tides and the wind and everything, and guessing how fast I would be able to go realistically. And that took me ages to learn how to do all of that, because I know how to sail, but only how to be crew. And having to do such a detailed route plan by looking at everything took me a while at first, but then I got there in the end, and it still takes me a while, but I can do it now.
Okay, so when you actually finally set off, will you have prepared your route plan, as it were, completely all the way, or are you going to do that as you go along?
Yeah, it'll be as I go along, but so it's actually quite different what I've been training in, because I have sandbanks and I have land to avoid. I have narrow channels to go through and other boats and everything, and you have to actually really be on it with your navigation, so that in the ocean, if you're off by 20 degrees, it probably doesn't matter. In where I've been training, if you're off by 20 degrees, then you could beat yourself, because you're no longer in the channel that you should be in. It's really shallow over there or something. So when I do my crossing, I will have a waypoint every 500 miles or so. That's just a general-ish. Like, it'd be great if you head in that direction, but I'm not going to try and force my boat in that way. I'm going to be using the conditions. And if I don't get into French Guiana, if I get to other land in South America, I'll go there. Because French Guiana is quite small, and the records are mainland to mainland, so it doesn't actually matter which country I go into.
Presumably quite good that you're actually rowing in challenging conditions at the moment, because it makes you more alert and makes you more aware of subtleties in the actual navigation, because like anything, when you go from A to B, whether you're on land or sea or the air, and navigation is absolutely everything for a safe trip. And as you say, especially if you're either fighting or trying to work with the weather, whichever way that it's going at that particular time, it's certainly keeping you on board. Now, the navigation setup you've got, I mean, obviously the whole range of equipment that you've got there. You've obviously got the comms equipment, you've got navigation equipment, you've got desalination, and then obviously the food side as well, all of which are interesting stories in themselves. But do you have backups of everything?
So I am hopefully going to take under 90 days, but I have enough food for 110. I have spare parts for my water maker, but not an entire spare water maker, because they're quite big. I don't have spare batteries, because there isn't really space to carry a spare one. I do already have 2 on the boat, so if one of them does go down, I can charge one battery with both solar panels. But what else do I have? I have spare comms and spare emergency position things. but I don't have a spare chart plotter, which is my navigation really, because realistically, as long as I'm heading towards where the sun is setting, I'll get there.
That's very optimistic. That's a good idea. Keep going that way. That won't change. Excellent. So are you taking like a phone as well, a mobile phone and a sat phone and that type of thing? I saw one of your videos earlier on where you've just quickly glanced at the comms port, as it were, but it all looked like it was bolted down, which I presume it needs to be, really.
Yeah, so everything is always attached to the boat, but I will be taking my normal phone. Because I'll be WhatsApping my weather routers, because I'll have Starlink Wi-Fi when I'm out there. So I'll be able to do a call like this in the middle of the ocean, which is, I think, really cool. So I'll just be on WhatsApp with my coaches and say they'll let me know if a weather front's coming in and how the best route that I should take through it. And sometimes, because they're not there with me, the weather will be slightly off. But then after a couple of weeks of my feedback, they'll be able to get it really, really accurately.
Sure. Did you say you've got Starlink on the boat?
Yes, it's actually arriving today and getting on today. And I think I'm going to be the first person ever to use this specific one, because he's just come out with the mini and it's about this big, and no one's used it in the middle of the ocean yet. So we didn't have any good feedback from it because no one's done it. So hopefully I'll be able to come back and go like, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, they're fantastic. I know it's line of sight Starlink, and obviously you're not going to be struggling with trees or anything, are you? So it should be brilliant.
Yeah, and it will mean that I can call my family and stuff on Christmas Day and actually see their faces and it not be like a rubbish connection, because normally ocean rowing you'd have this thing called a BGAN where you have to hold it and position it and wait for beeping, and then you have to stay there until your videos send. It takes about 20 minutes to send a 10-second video or something. So this is going to be hopefully much quicker, and it means I'm not using my resting time, still not resting.
And this is an unsupported trip. Would you like to describe to people what unsupported actually means?
So I already mentioned that I have weather on board. Well, not on board, but helping me out and texting me and everything. But unsupported means that there's not a nearby vessel there to help me. So I have to carry everything myself. And then if a problem happens, I have to get over it. And then if I am actually in a mayday, then a nearby ship, like a shipping container ship, would come and pick me up. But there's nobody there whose job it is to make sure that I'm okay.
So from a safety point of view, what sort of trials have you done? Have you done sort of capsize trials, cleaning the boat, etc., etc.?
Yes, and you have to do what's recommended, that you do lots of different courses when you cross an ocean. So I did sea survival and first aid at sea and radio and everything like that. But my boat self-rights, which is good, so that if I do capsize, it just pops back around the correct way. And I actually haven't got in the water yet. When I do my crossing, I'll have to get in every couple of days to clean the underside of the boat to make sure nothing's growing on it, which is going to really slow me down, and also to make sure that the boat's not broken. And then I've not realised, because I could get struck by a marlin and then have one of my under cabins pierced and not realise because they're all separated, but then everything in that cabin's going to be getting very wet and slowing me down as well. So it'd be fixing that as well. So I do have to get in, but I've not done it yet. But I'll do that in Portugal because the water's a bit warmer there than it is here at the moment.
Very sensible. Is it a single skin boat then, or a double skin?
Yeah, just single. It's super thin. I've not got any anti-fouling on it or anything either, so that's why I have to get in so often. If I had anti-fouling, then I would have to get in like once a week maximum.
And is there like a patch-up kit that you get for these sort of things? So should you have a slight piercing?
Yes, I have a whole repair kit here, which is wooden bungs and epoxy that can set in water. And so I'd find the right bung to fix the hole in and hopefully fix it quite quickly, and then pump all of the water out of it. And then that's done, and make sure it's not leaking in the rest of the crossing. But I have spares for everything as well, because orcas and sharks like to bite off rudders. So I have spare rudder just in case I get nibbled by something quite big.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you make it sound as if there's a whole industry in training courses for people like yourself doing crossings, all these different courses.
Yeah, so all of my courses are through RYA, and they are. I already had some before through sailing, but nothing quite so specific. And then all of my coaching is done with Rannick, the people that make the boats. So they have done this really intense program, which they would not normally do because 2 months isn't really very long. But because I have just finished university and I don't have a job yet because I'm joining the army next year, I've just been here for 2 months, whereas normally most people have a job and can't actually be 24/7 on the boat. So yeah, you can absolutely get some really good coaching done. And there's a race that happens across the Atlantic every year, but you only have to do, I think it's 120 hours in your boat for that. So it's actually very doable if you want to do it.
Obviously, the most important question above all of this, the most important question is, does the boat have a name?
It does. It's called Evandra. It was a suggestion from a sponsor.
Okay, sorry, and what's the significance of the name?
So I actually didn't realise this at the time. It's actually, I think, quite a funny story. So I was at an event with a sponsor, and somebody that I was sitting next to for lunch was very nice. And when I put it on LinkedIn for suggestions for a name, he commented Evandra and said what it was and how she sets the path and she's a goddess and everything like that. I thought, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe I've not heard about it before. And so I named it without Googling it myself. And then did all the ship's registry and reprogrammed everything, which took ages. And then somebody told me that she's from a mythical board game. So it's like a fantasy board game kind of thing. So she's not actually a Greek goddess, which I thought she was. So that's my story.
Oh, well, it's a cute name anyway, no matter where it came from. It's good. You've got to have a name, haven't you? And did you say you've actually bought the boat yourself?
Sorry, Team Forces. So I went to Team Forces in April and said I really want to row an ocean this winter, but I've got no money. And I was trying to get some sponsorship through the connections they have, so through defence companies. And it was just taking a while to get proper interest, and they needed to make a decision if the crossing was going to go ahead. So Team Forces bought the boat in hopes that sponsorship would then become interested and come on board, and we have now, but the boat still belongs to Team Forces, so they really, really massively helped me out there.
Well, absolutely, and obviously totally believe in you as well, which is even more, probably a bit nerve-wracking, isn't it, to have all this confidence in you?
Yeah, definitely. I actually had quite a big low in training a few weeks ago. So for the first time ever in my life, I failed at something physical. And I failed again and again and again. And it was 4 days in a row of just horrid weather. And it turns out it genuinely was just weather that a sailor rower can't row against. But for 5 hours, I would be rowing as hard as I can at a speed of 0. And every so often the speed would blip up to 2.5 knots, which is great, except it was me being blown in the wrong direction. And it really put a lot of doubt in my mind if I could actually do something like an ocean, if I was straddling, 5 miles offshore. But then the weather turned like it always will, and it was fine. And then I did quite a speedy, I think 11-hour row or something, just because I was like, no, I've got to do it properly. Yeah, it has tripped. I think that was probably the hardest thing I've had in training so far.
You're listening to the outdoorsStation.co.uk. The home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for lovers of the great outdoors everywhere.
So how are you feeling when you're out there training now? In all honesty, you that's a good story in the sense that you've shared, an immediate low and getting over it. But the period of time you're talking about, 70 odd days, is a long, long time. So has the last few weeks of training really dawned on you what you're taking on?
Not really, I don't think. I think I'm going to get there, and I understand it's a long time, but it's difficult to imagine, one, the conditions I'll have because I haven't been able to train in 20-foot waves. But when I'm out there, I do genuinely enjoy rowing, which is really good. And 80% of the time, I'm just having a fun time by myself. It'll just be the tough 20 when it's really awful weather and it's dark and I miss people. But I'll have no choice but to row, because what else am I going to do? Just be in the ocean longer, which I won't want to be. So just carrying on and pushing through when you don't want to.
And would you describe yourself as a fairly solitary person anyway?
No, I know I've always picked being around people than being by myself. And that I think that'll be difficult as well, just being away from everyone for so long.
So you're saying about going over to Portugal to obviously depart from there. Now, obviously, you've got your equipment that's behind you. We'll go on to that in a minute. But how do you ship a boat of that size to Portugal?
Normally, they would be shipped in a shipping container, but because I didn't have the time that would take, because I needed my UK hours to be done, and shipping takes a really long time, so my boat's actually getting driven. So on the picture behind you, my boat's on a trailer in that, and so it'll just get taken down in that for a couple of days, and then I'll fly out when it's there and meet it there and put it on the water and start training.
Remarkably simple, isn't it? Remarkably simple. I never thought about taking it on a trailer. So food, let's just talk about food and nutrition, because obviously you are training hard, and we need to talk a little bit about the training as well. On top of the rowing training you're doing, you must be doing lots of other physical training as well. The food that you're taking with you obviously are all freeze dried, I guess, or similar?
They're all dehydrated, so it's powder, and then you put water in it, and then it solidifies in about an hour. So
is it cold? It's all cold food then? You're not heating it in any way?
I could. Most people do take a jet boil, which is just a way to heat water up, but it's super quick. And I don't want to, because I don't see the point. I'm taking one for if I absolutely have to, like, cauterize something or burn something, which I'm not planning on doing. But for me, warm food, cold food is not going to make any difference to my morale. It's a faff. It's a way that I could burn my hands. And if you burn the inside of your hands when you're rowing, you're in for just a really rotten couple of days until it heals. So I'll just be eating all of my food cold.
Okay, and so what's the range of what's the cuisine? What are we taking with us? What's in the canteen?
So one of my favorite things that they have is about this big. It's about 1,000 calories. It's called a meal block, and it doesn't have any description of what's in this meal block, but it's quite nice. It's quite but you do get more normal things. They try and make pretty regular meals, like lots of beans, but like rice, curries and things like that. Some of them are wet as well already, but they look a bit like cat food. Loads of snacks, because it's just eating as much as possible. It's eating 5,500 calories a day and still losing just under 2,000 a day. So I've got to eat all of the food possible.
Well, from a practical point of view, I guess there is X amount of hours you're going to be spent rowing, which is going to be the priority, but you've also got to rest as well. That's another priority. Then you've got admin to do as well, because there's your navigation and seeing what's going on around you on a wider scale. Then contacting base to confirm the weather conditions, as well as resting and trying to have some, well, I say leisure time, but time to recoup. What's your timetable, your mental timetable, now that you've been out on the water for a while? How do you feel it will actually go for you?
I think I will be about 5 hours rowing, 20 minutes off. In that 20 minutes, I'll sleep or eat. Or I eat when I'm rowing, so I just put my food on, as long as it's not too splashy, because then it would just go overboard, and we don't want that. So it goes in either a pocket next to me or just on deck, and I can take a bite every few strokes and still carry on rowing, and then sleep in 20 minutes as and when I can, and then try get an hour in one go at night time, because it's so much better for your body. And then trying to just do something fun as well when you're really tired. So I have a logbook, which I can write how everything's going and how I actually felt that day. But also try and make myself feel human. So you've always got to make sure you wash the salt off your body, because that's really bad. You'll get salt sores, and then if they get infected and everything. So making sure that you keep your boat really clean and free of salt, and you really clean, and just doing something silly for fun. So for me, that would be painting my nails.
Oh, right. Chuck out that food. Give me some nail varnish.
Yeah.
I'll have a gallon. Do you sell it by the gallon? Fantastic. One of the other big questions people would ask, I would ask automatically, what is your treat? Presumably you like your music. So do you have a good selection of music to take with you? Who's your favourite song of artists or whatever?
I haven't actually done that yet, but I will. I have a little waterproof speaker that can clip out onto my handrails out on deck, which means that my phone can stay inside and not break. And I think I will probably listen to about 2 hours of something a day, or a podcast or something. But who do I like? I like the Backseat Lovers a lot, and they're a good band.
Well, I can recommend the podcast on the Outdoor Station. There's 500 there to keep you going for a bit. That'll help you cross half an ocean. So let's have a look at some of your stores behind you, if we may.
Yeah.
What have you got?
Cool.
What have you got there?
I'll show you. I have everything. I have my parachute anchor and all of my lines, and then I have hats. I have a helmet actually for when my boat's going upside down. I have a spare seat, spare radio, this to clean the underside of my boat when I need to, and then just lots of stuff really. The boat, this is everything but food. Okay. So loads of medical supplies, loads of flares.
Sure.
And then that's it pretty much. I've got my licenses for my boat there, so with all my certificates of things like that, which you have to carry, which I didn't realise.
I presume you're attached to the boat at all times, and everything's attached to you if you're going overboard. Are you anticipating officialdom? Anybody sort of stopping you and seeking identity or paperwork?
We're not expecting that, but when I come into land on the other side, I will have to go through customs and just say who I am and why I'm there and stuff. But as long as I'm going into somewhere relatively near French Guiana, my navigation people would have called ahead and tried to sort it out for me as much as possible, so that it's not just me out there by myself trying to navigate in a country where I don't understand what's going on and I'm tired. Yes.
Very tired, I should imagine. I presume then, because it's unsupported, then it's against the rules if anybody were to have a fishing boat by you and offer you some food, you've got to refuse it?
So I'm not actually, I will double check before I go. I think the rules are I can't request anything, but if someone gives me a gift, I can accept it, I think. But if I'm near fishing boats, I'm probably quite near land anyway, so I'm probably just going to be quite excited to see a human and just talk to them. There's quite a lot of sailing and rowing and everything that's happening at the similar time that I'm going, so if I can have a radio conversation with anybody when I'm out there, I absolutely will as well.
And are you able to have like a headset, a mic, and so that you can row and talk to people at the same time, or do you have to stop and go to the comms section? So for media, I have a little Bluetooth clip-on thing, which I've actually not used yet, but it will just go on a strap, and it means that I can carry on rowing and talk to people. And then for actual communication, I have a handheld VHF, so a radio out on deck with me attached to my handrails, and then if I want to go inside as well, I have another one inside which is built in, but I always have a radio near me. And you were referring earlier on to salt causing problems. It has got to be the worst thing, really. I know it's terrible on clothes if clothes get abrasion with salt onto you. So most people row without wearing very much at all. But it's the same with salt in equipment. It can really get into anything and cause problems. So what are your sort of preparations? Have you wrapped everything in, or will you be wrapping everything in sort of heavy-duty plastic bags or sealed bags or waterproof bags?
Yeah, everything in bags, everything. And then I actually have the same amount of solar on my solar panels on my boat that a 5-man boat will have, and it means that I can make water making is the most energy hungry thing that I'll do, and I need to make about 8 litres a day to make sure that I have enough to drink and clean everything with, because I need to be washing down the gates that my oars actually go in, so that they don't get all rusty and horrible and everything start breaking off. So I'm really lucky that I'm not going to be struggling to keep things clean, because I can make so much water.
Yeah, I can see water is going to be an absolutely vital component, isn't it, to the success of the trip. Have you, in your recent training then, with going out with the boat, have you found any weak spots or areas that you hadn't really anticipated might be a weak spot?
No, I think I've been really lucky that I've had great equipment, and the boat's only a year and I think a half old or something, so it's got the newest spec on it, and all of my equipment is new, so I think I'm quite lucky.
And the seating's quite comfortable. You're not going to get sores on your bum or your legs with the rowing, and where your feet are placed in the traps.
Yeah, so my feet have always been fine, because it's not like river rowing where you always put your feet in as tight as possible. So with this rowing, I don't actually think I've ever put my feet in. I will in really, really bad weather, but I probably will get quite a sore bum after a few weeks, but I have 2 different kinds of seats, so I can change it up. And you do have all of that medical stuff behind me, so if something is really nasty, then you can try and help it heal a bit quicker.
And I think you said at the beginning you've done a medical training course, so you've gone through all the variations of some of the type of things that might happen.
Yeah, but this course isn't tailored for solo rowers, so lots of it is not useful to me because I can't give CPR to myself. So it's lots of it is putting people in a recovery position and helping them and how to call for help and everything like that. And obviously I can't do that. So it was useful to learn and interesting, but lots of it in solo rowing is just tough.
Yeah, get on with it, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're the right sort of girl for that. So on land training at the moment, you've obviously continued your rowing since university, so I've got no doubt that you do row. But what sort of length of time do you row for, and what other activities do you do? What's the ideal training for this type of activity?
Just as much as you can without injuring yourself. I think the longest I've continuously been on the oars and not even gotten up for anything is, I think, 12 and a half hours. And that was just around here. And then weights are important. I haven't been able to do weights for the past couple of months because I've been on the boat. But whenever I get off the boat, I do go for a run as well, because it's a completely different kind of muscle, and I'm going to lose pretty much most of them when I'm gone. So I really like it, so I'm trying to make the most of it while I can. But I think just doing training that you actually find enjoyable, and if you don't find rowing enjoyable, probably don't row an ocean, because there's a lot of it.
And what about squats and that sort of thing? So surely building your thighs up would be a key aspect.
Yeah, so from where I was when I finished university, haven't been in the gym because I've been on the boat, but I was in the gym at university twice a day plus rowing. So it was at uni, it was 39 hours a week of training. And then when I've come here, the variety's gone down because it is just a lot of rowing, but then training's gone up. It's much less intense now because you're not. When I rowed at university, it was really common to throw up in training just because you're constantly pushing yourself to be as quick as possible and going really quickly. Whereas this is just really slow and steady and making sure it's maintainable, and it's like the same effort as a quick walk, really.
So the stroke rate comparison to a row machine to what you're doing now, what are we talking about?
So when I'm in racing, in rowing, it is 44 strokes a minute or higher. And then when I am rowing here in my ocean rowing boat, it is about 16, so it's much slower.
Now, you're doing this for charity as well. So would you like to tell me a bit about the causes you're doing it for?
Yes, so I'm raising money for Team Forces and Women in Sport. So Team Forces help fund expeditions for current and ex-military people, and women in sport encourage and educate and give spaces for women and girls to go and keep fit and everything, and try and build their confidence, especially when they're going through puberty and menopause, where you have your biggest change in your body and everything. So both relevant and near and dear to my heart, and anything that we can raise is going to mean a lot to me and to them.
Because the project has been taking a very short time to get off the ground, and you're moving forward now, and obviously your social media is only just starting to build, and you're getting your media contacts and media interviews obviously underway. Have you had any women or anybody, young females like yourself, contact you and sort of give you supports, make any comments, seek questions? How do you do it? How do you get into this, that type of thing?
It means the most to me when people reach out to me individually and say that they think it's cool and they want to try something, or they just want to learn about it. And I think it's a bit wild that some people already are almost looking up to me, because I speak with lots of people who are Team Forces beneficiaries, and I met them and I already knew who they were, and I met them and I was like, oh my God. And so it's a bit surreal to me that some people are already I'm not on the same level as them, but some people are already thinking what I'm doing is cool, and that's baffling.
Well, we'll give your social media a big push as well, and obviously encourage people to keep in contact and send you messages to give you moral support. The other area I'm wondering have you spoken to anybody else that's done this and they've given you any particular advice?
I've spoken to a few people that have crossed an ocean before. Nobody that's done my route, but from what I'm gathering, it is lots of there's very little that somebody can actually tell you. You just go out there, you do it, you know what you know, and then you learn. And there are some things that you can't imagine no matter how well somebody describes it to you. So you just get there and you find out. But it's been nice to hear the silly things that they did to keep them happy, and what they actually did to make them feel happy when they were actually quite down. So I have spoken to probably more than 10 people about their experience crossing an ocean.
Okay, so you're ready for it. It sounds like your headspace is good. You're ready for it now.
I'm excited. It's been a couple months of just talking about it, so I'm really excited to go.
And has the talking about it to all the different media people been the hardest part?
Yes, honestly, yes.
Same questions over and over again.
Well, not even just that. It's just I'm not a very open person. So I told my friends that I was doing some rowing this winter and maybe going to South America. I haven't really told anybody about it. So the media's just been quite difficult because I am quite a closed person.
So Zara, I'm going to wish you absolute best on this. I'm going to try and keep in contact if we can, and keep our listeners up to speed where you are and what's going on in a few weeks or a couple of months' time. But of all the things I could have asked you about this particular crossing and this project and what you're setting out to do, what should I have asked you?
No, I think you did ask me everything. I think the most important thing to me is the fact that it's for charity, and the fact that I was, as a couple of months ago, completely newbie and scared, and I did it anyway. So you can do it too, whatever it is that you want to do.
My thanks to Zara for taking the time out of her training schedule to talk with me and to share her story with you. The noise you heard was from the workshop next door while they're actually making the final alterations to the boat. What an incredible challenge, and I fully intend to check up with her again in December, live from the boat, catch up with her progress and share it once again with you all. You can see she is quietly confident, but also modest, not even mentioning the epic adventure to her friends. So please take a few moments to give her some support and leave a comment or two on her Instagram, Atlantic_solo_Zara. That's Atlantic_solo_Zara. Or give a small donation via her link to Team Forces and Women in Sport charity. Maybe do it now before you forget, and pop a reminder into your diary as well towards the end of October to see her set off and wish her well. She appears to be taking it all in her stride currently, and I would expect it to be a life-changing experience. Sandhurst should be very honoured to have her join their ranks in due course. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a reference on Apple Podcasts and maybe join my newsletter. The links are dotted around everywhere on the social and the website. I'll be back soon with more conversations, stories and news from the wonderful world in which we live. Until then, take care out there and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorsStation.co.uk.